Hello and welcome back to Murder in Retrograde. This is our 23rd episode, so thank you for joining us again or for the first time. And don't forget that we have our YouTube channel, so go check that out as well.
Now, let's get to today's very recent case. This is the story of the disappearance of Erika Lloyd. I'm Brittany Sheffrin.
I'm Jenna Kaplan.
And this is Murder in Retrograde.
Okay, so we know that the last thing anyone really wants to talk about right now is COVID, but this story is heavily intertwined. For this particular case, we won't speak of the actual COVID-19 illness, but the pandemic definitely plays a part.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much the way 9/11 changed our lives, the pandemic has as well. I believe there will forever be a pre- and post-pandemic period we differentiate between. We've all been inextricably changed by this experience. The isolation, the suffering, the complete halt on virtually all economic activity across the globe. It's unprecedented. And this will change the world maybe even more than 9/11.
Oh, yeah. I was reading that a lot of people in the spiritual world believe that the pandemic kind of rearranged us to some degree. We're all collectively in this together. There's a unifying aspect there, which also comes at a time when there is a glaring disparity of opinions, beliefs, facts, science, morals, ethics. It goes on and on. We've all really been put in situations we could not have anticipated.
Exactly. And then think of all the people you know that are controlling. We've all had to relent, step back, think about our mortality or the mortality of those that we love. So many have lost homes, lost loves of their lives, lost children, lost parents, lost jobs, lost businesses, lost their health, lost their minds, and of course, the hundreds of thousands that have lost their lives. As we all cling to this cliff and desperately look for solid ground to help lift ourselves back up.
Yeah, but back up to what? It's not as if life's automatically going to go back to normal. I think people thought that magically this new year would change everything, or that the administration would wave its magic wand and fix everything immediately. The progress has been slow at best, but at least everything feels steady and is headed in the right direction now.
The fallout from this pandemic it's almost too overwhelming to conceptualize for me. Obviously, psychology is my passion, so that's at the top of my list. And mental health help right now is frontline work, if you ask me. At the beginning of the quarantine, we had the courageous healthcare workers helping people with the disease we didn't even know about. Then the wonderful people who continued to work for weeks without masks because businesses didn't like the optics in grocery stores, gas stations, daycares, you name it. They all put their own health in danger for the rest of us. And yes, thank goodness the virus's destruction seems to be lessening.
We also have had to help other people who are suffering alone right now. We must help the people who are suffering mentally. Take example the subject for this week's episode, Erika Ashley Lloyd, a 37-year-old single mom from Walnut Creek, California, a Northern California suburb in the East Bay. Prior to the pandemic, Erika worked as a hairstylist, a lifelong passion of hers that she excelled at. She was also the mother of a preteen son whom she adored endlessly. However, with her salon being shut down and there being no way to make ends meet, she was stressed. It seems as if there was nearly no end in sight back in June of 2020. She had hit a wall. Erika needed to get away. She dropped her son off at his father's house on June 14th. She then begins a 7-hour drive down to Joshua Tree National Park. Now, there's been a lot of talk about 2 different social media actions Erika supposedly took before this trip. Apparently, she either deleted or disabled her Facebook, and her final Instagram post had stirred up a lot of talk. It's just funny a meme about how hard the pandemic was, but some people read way more into it. There was an odd aspect in that there was a bunch of Russian bots commenting under her post. Authorities have debunked that, though. I guess missing persons cases pop up and these news bots repost anything that is getting attention at the time. True crime is popular in Russia and they pick up stories from the US all of the time. Of course, other people have taken it much further. Speculators online have insinuated she could have been involved with the Russian mafia, who is allegedly very active in California, although I've never heard of that. There was other people speculating she could have been taken for sex trafficking or possibly been abducted or harmed for having unknowingly stumbled upon a secret marijuana grow yard. There is a plethora of speculations online. None of it has been commented on by the police or the family.
On the morning of Monday, June 15th, Erika called her mom Ruth and dad Wayne, who live on the East Coast. According to family sources, Erika was lamenting about the quarantine. She told her parents she had decided to unplug and go camping in Joshua Tree for a few days. She was already on her way. She considered it a pandemic solo road trip, but she did say she was meeting up with a few friends when she got there. Sounds normal enough. However, I did find it a little unnerving. In an interview in August with KRON News, Ruth Lloyd, Erika's mother, said that on this phone call, Erika, quote, sounded like she was driving. She was speaking very rapidly. It was just hard to make out exactly what she was saying, end quote. Now, maybe she was just excited, but that could also be a sign of being impaired somehow or experiencing some mental illness symptoms. For example, she chose to go camping even though friends and family said she was not an avid camper by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, she had very little camping experience whatsoever. Erika was last seen leaving her Walnut Creek home on June 14th, and her family lost contact and had not spoken with her since June 16th. Wayne Lloyd, Erika's dad, told ABC affiliate KESQ, quote, we both feel like she could still be out there. She could be with people. Somebody could have taken her in. We are hopeful as of this time, the sheriff's department hasn't seen anything negative, end quote.
That same day that she was last heard from, an ominous clue surfaces. The California Highway Patrol found Erika's 2006 black Honda Accord. It was abandoned off Highway 62 and Shelton Road near the city of Twentynine Palms, California. For anyone that doesn't know, Twentynine Palms is located in the Mojave Desert in Southern California. It's on the northern side of Joshua Tree National Park. It actually includes one of the entrances to the national park at the Oasis of Mara. The city is also home to the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center, the MCAGCC, which is the largest United States Marine Corps base. That's the official description, though. From our experience, it's a strange and desolate place. Brittany, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yes, I agree. It's an area you don't even realize exists. It's past Palm Springs, Palm Desert, Coachella, all of that. It's way out in the middle of nowhere. It's mostly military, and they have like a small downtown strip, if that's what you want to call it, with a few shops, and there's only 25,000 residents. It was just east of this town where the CHP recovered Erika's car. Her car was found abandoned facing the highway and in a very quiet area that people wouldn't visit often. The car looked like it had been vandalized as well. Details as to why were not released. Now, this might account for it being so far outside of town. Maybe it was stolen after Erika left it somewhere. That would also explain all the damage to the interior of the car. For example, the radio was gone and no personal belongings remained inside. Oddly, though, there was a children's umbrella stroller in the trunk. I don't quite know how that fits, since Erika's son is 12 years old and clearly doesn't need a stroller. So maybe, again, that's a clue towards the car being stolen. Although, who brings an umbrella stroller when they're out committing crimes? But that's another story. Regardless, I'm kind of surprised those things don't point to the possibility of foul play. But we all know I'm not a cop. Nathan Lewis, who is a Joshua Tree park ranger, told KESQ in early July that the front and back windshield of Lloyd's car were smashed and broken. But the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department reportedly found no signs of foul play at the scene. This car was destroyed, though. The airbag had been deployed, the radio was completely gone, and anything left on the dash was smashed to smithereens. The windows were all shattered, and there was extensive damage done to both the AC and the radiator underneath the car. This car was in some sort of serious collision, and this was as far as that car could get Erika if she was in it when the wreck occurred. At this point, the mother of one's disappearance had sparked a large-scale search all over the state of California. Dozens of park rangers, sheriff deputies, and volunteers immediately went into action. They even deployed aircraft in search for Erika. Flyers were being printed and mailed to convenience stores by Erika's aunts on the East Coast. Her brother, sister-in-law, and parents were tireless in their efforts to find Erika. First, they thought she was simply going on a road trip. Then they heard her car had been found, badly damaged. You can only imagine what a family goes through when they hear this and this scenario plays out.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it'd be shocking and terrifying. As Brittany said, Erika's car was recovered, though badly damaged, but she was still nowhere to be found. Remember that the front and back windows of Erika's Honda Accord had been smashed out. In addition, the airbag had gone off. Clearly something happened here. Was this an accident or foul play? It's still so hard to tell.
Keep in mind, she was also in the middle of the desert in a small town with barely any residents, if it was her driving the car. Also, on the shoulders of the freeways and some major side streets in the Mojave Desert, they form these little hill-like formations several feet high. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do. What are those things? I mean, it seems like they would be to stop someone from driving off the highway. Is that it?
Yeah, basically. They keep the tumbleweeds at bay and stop cars or debris from possibly crashing through fencing, etc., and making it onto the highway or flying off of the highway. This was the first police theory, that Erika was probably in some sort of car accident where her vehicle was disabled. Whether it be a hit and run or she just lost control, hit something, who knows?
So the police are saying that she might have hit one of those little mounds of dirt on the side of the road?
Possibly, although nothing was said about finding an area where the dirt showed that something like that had occurred, at least not that they announced. Regardless, Erika's car had been found, but where was she?
The following day, the Lloyd family called the authorities and reported that Erika was missing. The family also told police that Erika had recently shut down her business because of the quarantine, so she had zero income coming in. This was not a good thing, especially if Erika was in some sort of peril and needed support or help. Her mother also had mentioned that homeschooling her son and the lockdown measures all snowballed for Erika. She was restless, and that's why she decided to go off on this road trip to Joshua Tree and go camping. Her mother gave another quote to KESQ saying, quote, being in lockdown for almost 3 months, not being able to work, and she was trying to homeschool her son, it was starting to get to her, the pressure and not having any income, end quote. Erika's family was beginning to speculate that she may have been in some sort of car accident and possibly became disoriented. They've brought in an outside expert in the region's caves and mines to search for her.
Strange that she would decide to do that if she wasn't even into camping.
I know. I find that odd too. It's like not the type of activity you do on a whim if you're not well equipped, or at the very least knowledgeable when it comes to camping. It's so interesting. Maybe she was meeting someone there. I'm sure the phone records are going to be combed through thoroughly if they haven't been already, but out of curiosity, what is the expert that her family hired doing for them?
Good question. Her parents hired Doug Billings, whose official title is cave and mine expert. Pretty interesting profession. You don't think about it, but people are often found hidden in caves or mines or places like that. And this particular expert actually helped find 19-year-old Aaron Corwin, who also went missing in the area. After exhaustive efforts, sadly, Aaron Corwin's body was found down a mine shaft near Joshua Tree in 2014. Quote, "In this case, I know the area particularly well from the Erika Corwin search," Doug Billings said, "but it's the same general area, just a little less isolated than Aaron's case." Billings went on to say he'd spent more than 20 hours in search of signs of Lloyd's disappearance. Quote, "We hiked up and down the washes and canyons that are at the foothills of the mountains there." He's using a special map program he owns to attempt to retrace Erika's steps.
At this point, police are not treating this as anything other than a missing persons case. They announced to the public very early on that foul play was not suspected. I find that to be odd. The area where she had apparently been camped the night before was undisturbed and all of her gear was still intact. Erika chose the campsite Jumbo Rocks Campground in Joshua Tree. This was about 10 miles away from where her car was found. Seems like a large distance for someone camping out. Eventually, police started to change their tune and announced they are not ruling out foul play.
So just to recap, we have a 37-year-old mother of one who is traveling to Joshua Tree to go camping. She's having a hard time during the pandemic, like all of us. The last time she speaks with her family is June 16th, which is the very same day the California Highway Patrol finds her totaled Honda Accord. All of her supplies and belongings are still at her campsite.
There was one witness who reported seeing a woman matching Erika's description walking along the highway the day she went missing. She was able to identify Erika by her tattoos later from a flyer she saw. Searches continued, and the family hoped and prayed for some sort of clue as to where she was. Then, on January 31st, 2021, 8 months after she went missing, the worst possible news came to the Lloyd family. Erika Ashley Lloyd's remains were stumbled upon accidentally by 2 hikers. They found her on the desert trail in Wonder Valley. Keep this place in your memory for later, or maybe it already sounds familiar to you. It's been in the news lately, but more on that later. The location where she was found was about 15 miles northeast of Joshua Tree. Erika was positively identified in February 2021 through her dental records, according to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. And on February 19th, the family posted onto the Bringing Erika Home Facebook page, quote, "It is with a heavy heart to announce that these remains have been identified by San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department as my sister Erika." That was posted by her brother, Colin Lloyd. On Saturday, her brother Colin shared photos of a memorial garden created near the place where Erika's remains were found. The memorial included 2 crosses, each made from wood and stone set out in the shape of a heart. His message read in part,
"As the brother of Erika Lloyd, I would like to address the public on behalf of our family. On January 31st, 2021, human remains were discovered by hikers in the vicinity of Danby Road and Amboy Road in Wonder Valley, California. It is with a heavy heart to announce that these remains have been identified by the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department as my sister Erika. There is no easy way for me to tell you all this, and there's no easy way for any of us to receive it. My wish is that we can all lean in a little closer, hold each other up, and remind each other more often that we're here for one another with open arms and endless love. It's what she would have wanted, and it's the spirit of who she was." Close to 8 months have passed since Erika's disappearance, and we have been blessed by countless efforts of selflessness and compassion on part of the community and our family. We would like to thank the men and women of the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, to include their families, all the men and women who performed searches in the desert, Doug Billings and his friends who assisted in the search, the residents of 29 Palms and Wonder Valley, and all our family and friends who have been our rock throughout this difficult time. You have all been nothing short of a miracle for us.
4 miles away, that's how far Erika's remains were to her abandoned car. That is definitely a long walk, but you could feasibly walk 4 miles. It's just so shocking because so many people searched and searched for her. The desert is vast and the elements can be downright treacherous. But then, of course, there is the possibility of foul play, which brings us to the location where Erika was found, Wonder Valley. Remember earlier in the podcast when we asked you to remember that place for later? Well, you might remember hearing about it in our previous episode when we discussed actor Armie Hammer. Stick with me here. So in the summer of 2020, exactly when Erika went missing, Armie Hammer was living and working in 29 Palms, California. He explains it all in a Jimmy Kimmel appearance in October of 2020. He explained that after he left the Cayman Islands, because of course he separated from his wife, Elizabeth Chambers, in July of 2020, so he returned to LA with, quote, nothing to do, according to him. He then said that a friend of his named Ashton Ramsey had just bought an abandoned, rundown motel in the town of 29 Palms. He asked Armie to move into the motel with him and work construction to fix the place up in order to open it. That's right. A somewhat A-list celebrity apparently jumped at the change to live in the desert doing construction work. We also side-eyed each other when we saw that because it's weird. I mean, actors are just weird.
I highly recommend watching this interview with Jimmy Kimmel. You can Google it. Armie's funny, he's charming, he's quick on his feet, and quite frankly, he seems stone cold sober to me. And we've all heard the stories about the alleged cannibalism and him wanting to do all kinds of insidious things to women. However, murder was certainly not one of those things.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't, but that really would have been a doozy. The cannibalism was enough for this scandal.
I know, right? I didn't need to know about that so-called fetish ever.
Agreed. It seems as though this rumor began when it was reported that Erika's remains had been found back in January. This was before Erika was identified, mind you, but it was reported that there were only bones found and they had been, quote, scattered. This sent the internet ablaze and led people to believe Armie took his obsession all the way and I guess allegedly cooked and ate this woman. I don't know. Who knows? You can look up the rumors if you want to. However, we true crime buffs know that that's typical to find scattered remains. Plus, I don't think even if someone were a cannibal, would they walk around scattering bones like a witch? I mean, that sounds crazy. The remains were probably just not bones at that point. There were extreme elements in the Mojave Desert to deal with and lots of animals with the potential to carry things off.
Armie Hammer's friend's motel was eventually finished. It is open for business and it's called the Ramsey at 29 Palms. The boutique motel was started by a contemporary artist out of LA named Ashton Ramsey. Now, I fell down the rabbit hole of Ashton Ramsey's Instagram and found all sorts of pictures and videos of Armie during the summer of 2020 that were interesting to say the least. We do know that Armie was very active on social media at the time from previous DMs that have been released by women. Could he possibly have met up with someone in the middle of nowhere? Yes. Is there any proof of that whatsoever? No. Nevertheless, I did find it odd that the police came out and said that he is definitely not involved. How would they know? Unless maybe he was not in the desert at that particular time?
I'm sure this guy travels a ton to see his children now that he's divorced, or maybe the cops sometimes announce that they have ruled someone out publicly just to see how the individual's behavior changes as they watch them?
Definitely possible. The bottom line to this quasi-conspiracy theory that Armie Hammer might be involved in Erika's disappearance is nothing more than a silly internet rumor gone wild as far as we can tell. There is something happening in Wonder Valley, though. As with most desert towns, a lot of people go missing and sometimes secrets are buried. There are rumors online that there have been many girls that have gone missing recently. I could only find Erika and Aaron Corwin's disappearances. I looked up 29 Palms' annual crime report, and it shows 0 murders in 2019, 1 in 2018, and 2 in 2017. Not exactly a huge uptick. Nevertheless, the internet rumors keep chugging along.
So no further details have been released in regards to Erika's disappearance. It's unclear as to whether or not they even have a cause of death. I'm sure the family is deep in the throes of grief, and the time for digging into those painful details will have to come at their pace. If you have any information regarding the case, if you saw her black Honda Accord or know anything at all, please call the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department or the Walnut Creek Police Department. You can always report any tips anonymously via WeTip. That's www.wetip.com. You can remain completely anonymous. If you see something strange, just please report it. You could save a life.
Okay, so that's it for this case. Of course, as always, we will keep you updated on this and all of the cases that we cover. Speaking of, head over to our website to listen to the rest of our episodes. And while you're at it, go to our YouTube page and watch us talk about true crime and so much more. Please let us know if you have any cases you're interested in hearing about. Jenna, let's honor Erika by making sure to urge your friends, if they need a break, fine. Just make sure someone knows where you are, and that's as easy as just having your phone with you so GPS can help locate you if you have service. Let's not let this tragedy be in vain.
Yes, be safe out there and always remember to trust your gut. Bye. See you next time.